I don't usually include a mini lecture for these contemporary issues web pages, but in the case of the Yasukuni Shrine, there's some additional information that I think it's important to highlight that doesn't appear in any of the additional information that I've asked you to take a look at. We have to go back to this Butsudan, which I talked about in one of the previous lectures, the Shinto in Practice lecture. And you may recall that this is a Buddhist altar that is kept in the home, and they have these objects called ihai, which is a memorial shrine for the particular person who has died. And over a period of 33 years, the person's tama or soul, the essential, powerful spirit aspect of that is gradually removed from the more personified dimensions associated with the living person. And they join into a kind of collective family kami. We can call that an ujigami or clan kami. And it essentially will make your family more powerful by generation after generation, adding these elements of the deceased spirits to that. So this is the basic family pattern that continues to be practiced to this day. It's important to make a connection between that type of practice and the type of practices that go on at Yasukuni Shrine. I think that that is something that is missing in a lot of the discussions that we hear or read about with regard to Yasukuni Shrine. There's obviously a lot of controversial issues there, but what is not usually talked about is why you might want to include war criminals in your shrine, apart from the suggestion, which is obviously being assumed here, that the people who are enshrining the war criminals don't really think they're war criminals or don't really care about any of the atrocities that they committed. Now, the important thing to understand is that from a traditional Japanese perspective, a person who dies, especially in violent circumstances, that spirit can become actually very violent and needs to be transformed into something that is a tamer, where the power of that spirit is tamed. And that is often done through a Shinto shrine. Historically speaking, there are many, many instances where human beings who died in tragic circumstances, out of concern that that spirit would become a very destructive force, or in some cases they believe that that spirit already had become a destructive force, and they would then build a shrine, and to pacify that spirit, they would make offerings to the spirit. That's essentially what's going on at Yasukuni Shrine. What is often not understood by outsiders, people not within the Japanese cultural context, is that the whole reason for making the shrine in the first place is that because those people died under tragic circumstances and may have resentments that lead to problems for the nation. They may sort of hang around and cause all kinds of natural disasters and things like that. That's the reason for establishing the Yasukuni Shrine in the first place. And after all, that shrine in Japanese means state pacifying shrine. If you think about it from that perspective, it's actually very important to include war criminals, even though it's obviously highly controversial to have especially state figures going and seemingly paying reverence to this the state kami, which includes the spirits of war criminals. So hopefully that will give you some more perspective as you read about and think about the issues associated with Yasukuni Shrine.